Mark, welcome. It's great to chat with you. If you would like to provide your intro.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mark Essery. I'm a data scientist. I work for a company called Humankind. It's kind of like a mental health company, kind of like Better Health. While I kind of give myself the title data scientist just because that's what I like my learning is in and what I like to do, but I kind of am like a jack of all trades. I work on my data engineering team here. I've done a lot of like BI work too, but really trying to cement myself more in the data science world moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So my quick background, I started my career working in marketing and always dabbled in some data analysis, which I loved. And I was able to move into a marketing analytics role, at which point I realized I loved analytics, but had like no training in it. So I got my master's degree while working full time,
Oh, cool.
studied data science, and then went from like marketing analytics to product analytics. And then now I'm a data scientist focused more on like business analytics, so like sales, marketing, some product adoption. And then, of course, I also share a lot of content. Basically, it's like all the advice I wish I had access to when I was kind of making my own career journey and pivot. Just kind of trying to like share all the information I wish I had had.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah. So, anyway, yeah. So, I'm happy to chat and like answer any questions that you have.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully my questions aren't something you've already covered in your
Oh, it's
podcast
fine.
so far. But okay, that's cool that you got your master's while you were working. That was actually one thing I wanted to bring up was I guess right off the bat, like what would you say is like a big thing about a master's program specifically that stands out or makes like someone a data scientist more so than someone who like does personal projects, self-taught kind of thing? Because my background is in math and physics in school, so I've
Okay.
always been good in statistics, but I just didn't have the time and the bandwidth to do a master's
Yeah.
program. So I'm doing this like accelerated master's program that took like 8 or 9 months, and
Okay.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like I don't get the same recognition as someone who gets like the
Yeah.
actual degree.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, like a big thing was because my undergrad was a Bachelor of Arts in Communication, and like
Mhm.
I didn't have a STEM undergrad. Like that was one big factor for me is like I wanted that like STEM degree on my resume. Um, and the other thing for me was I knew that if I tried to do the self-learning route, I would not do it. Like I would just
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
I might like do like maybe like something here or there, but I just know with my discipline, like I wouldn't have done it nearly to like the same extent that you would get from like a master's program and at the same nearly
Mhm.
the same pace. So for me it was also just about the accountability and like the curriculum because I was like I don't even know what I don't know. Like what am I even lacking? Like I didn't, coming especially from a liberal arts background, like I'd never taken a statistics course. Um so yeah, for me, it was just that structured learning, the accountability, and then having that credential. And then having come out of it, I will say, like, pretty much everything I learned in my master's has been useful on the job. Like, some more than others. Like, certainly, like my Python, I learned Python and became extremely comfortable with it. Everything I know about machine learning, including like the math behind the algorithms.
Yeah, I like linear.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
just doing linear algebra, like I wouldn't have done that, I think, if it was just me on my own. So I think that was for me. I think other benefits are, you're connected to a network of alumni, you're connected to professors, some are like academics, some are like adjuncts who are working in the field. So just building that network and like getting like, turning to them for advice and experience. And then, of course, all of your classmates. You might have some that would come straight out of a bachelor's, but then you have people like me who are like career pivoters. And so being able to connect with them. And then the program I was in at DePaul had like a center for data science. And I've noticed a lot of universities are kind of starting to do that, where it's basically like research, either like professors doing research or if they're partnering with like local organizations, those become project opportunities for students. So just getting that connection to finding these like real world projects and real data to work on. A lot of times you can get that connection through your university. And then, yeah, just having the credential, unfortunately, in data science, it can be a little gatekeepy, and there are companies that will only consider candidates who have a master's degree.
Mhm.
So sometimes it just opens a door to more opportunities. But I will say it's a ton of money. It's a ton of time. It's also
Yeah.
a ton of energy and stress. So, like, I never want to tell anyone you should drop tens of thousands of dollars and, hundreds or thousands of hours of your life on this program, not to mention all of your like stress and patience. And
Mm.
that's just a big undertaking. But I mean, for me, it was worth it. But I think also it just like, yeah, really thinking about like where am I coming from? Where do I want to go? What is the best way to get there? Maybe it's a
Mhm.
master's, maybe, since you do have, a STEM undergrad that's highly relevant, then maybe it is, other study, self-study, if you're, especially if you're motivated and you have a good network. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was really comprehensive. Thank you. But did you like ever have a mentor that really helped, a specific mentor that really helped you like learn and grow?
Yeah, I would say I've had a lot of like official and unofficial mentors. So the first one was when well, even like before I switched into analytics, I've had bosses who were like very helpful. Like one of my best bosses was when I was still working in marketing. She was a vice president of marketing. And I think just she taught me a lot about just like working in the business world and how to build relationships and communicate. I mean, she, was VP of public relations, so that made a lot of sense.
That helps.
But then when I got into analytics, like my first manager of analytics, just from her, just she had a master's of statistics. And so from
Oh,
her, I could
cool.
just see like what you can accomplish with the right skills and training. That was when I still, before I had enrolled in my master's program. And so I think seeing what she had learned in her master's program and what she was able to do, I think for me, I was like, I really want that. I want that level of skill and
Hmm.
knowledge. And so that really, I think, inspired me to look at master's programs. And then I've gone through a few uh, like mentorship programs, like Data Angels is this Slack community for women in data, and like we kind of organize our own mentor program. And so I've like met some women through there that have been good mentors, just helping me with like job searches or, when I feel like I'm struggling at my job, just kind of helping me like rebuild my confidence. I have also worked with a career coach, which is um, separate from mentorship because it is someone you pay for. And I think a lot of people are always really curious about that. I mean, even before I ever worked with a coach, it was like, what's the deal with coaches? But it's kind of like, like a very, very highly qualified mentor, but also crossed with maybe like therapy for your career because it's a lot of like, because they should have training. If you're paying them, they should have some kind of training into like helping you
Right.
figure out like what do you need help with? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And then equipping you with the tools to get there.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and so it can be kind of expensive, but if you get to a point in your career where you're like, I need more help than I can just get from mentors, because I think especially as you kind of move up and get more senior, it's hard to find people to mentor you because then it's like the pool of potential people gets smaller. And so sometimes having a career
Right.
coach can help. Um,
Where did you find these career coaches?
Um, so the one I'm working with right now, we were actually friends before
Oh, cool.
she even became a coach. Like she worked in data science and she had like risen to like VP of data science for a market research firm. And then she started coaching and going through training. And then now she's a full-time coach. And so for me, it was helpful because number one, I already knew her. We met through like a local fitness community, so totally unrelated to our jobs.
That's cool though.
Um, but I knew she had worked in data science. I knew she had worked in like a managerial role. And so I felt like, okay, I think she's worth like paying for this
Yeah.
advice and then this guidance. But yeah, I think word of mouth. There's so many like career coaches out there on LinkedIn or other social media. I think, really looking at their background to being like, is this someone who can truly help me? It can be hard, I think, sometimes to find like that right fit. So definitely like asking around. And a lot of coaches will do like a free like discovery call to see like, is this a good match? Um, some of them will do like free like workshops or like low cost workshops, I think, as part of their like marketing funnel. But sometimes you can find people that way or like, okay, I think they're a good fit for me. Um, so yeah, but definitely do your research on coaches before you give them any money.
Yes, that's a good idea. I take it that this woman really helped out your career a lot.
Yeah, she was really
Okay.
helpful for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, VP of data science. You can't get more
I know.
badass than that.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, in terms of like a data science team,
Hmm.
do you how so I'm in this like weird position where everywhere I get hired, they see data science on my resume and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. We're about to do data science. We want to keep you here so we can transition to it." Then a year goes by, 2 years go by, and it's still like one of those kind of it feels like a carrot at the end of the stick type of thing.
Hmm.
So, and then I always like make sure I come up with tons of ideas of like what
Hmm.
to explore, but I can't really seem to get traction. So I guess my question would be, how does a data science team like really operate? Like how do projects come about? Is it something you bring up? Is it something that there's a backlog for it? I don't really know
Yeah.
what to expect within the data science world because I kind of feel like I'm on the outside looking in still a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of like it is hard because a lot of times the business side, like they don't know what's possible on the data
Mhm.
science side. And so it's like finding that relationship between like they get to know what's possible from the data science team, but then also the data science team really taking the time to learn like what are they working on, what do they need help with.
Mhm.
Um, and so beyond just simply asking them like what can we do for you, like really brainstorming, like make no assumptions. Like, what are the things that you wonder about, your audience or whatever part of the business you work on? Like, what are the things you wish you could uncover or you wish you could learn or the assumptions that you're making? What hypotheses do you have? What does success look like? How would you measure that? And just really taking the time to like have really open-ended conversations with them, I think you can start to learn, um, you know, what matters and then start to think about like, okay, how can I translate that into like a data science project? Um, and then I think also like not limiting yourself to just data science. So I think, what is any problem I can solve with data or information, whether or not it's truly science or if it could just be simply analysis or visualization, but sometimes that's where you start. And then you kind of build and iterate, and maybe you get more advanced down the road. But it's like, you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And so think about
Yeah.
like the data science projects you do, you have to kind of start small and build your way up. Um, and like think about like what's like a proof of concept you can do to kind of show like what's possible. And then also another concept I like is the idea of like building in public. So making sure like people know what you're doing. Um, and maybe you're doing regular demos with the business and you're saying like here's something I built for this team, and then they can start to think like, oh, what's something similar that they could build for our team. And so if they know what you're doing, even if it's not for their team, they can start to kind of come up with ideas and asks for things that they want you to do for them. They'll probably ask you for the exact same thing, but then once you like get that's a good conversation starter to kind
hmm
of see like, okay, is it the exact same thing that you need? Like, what's the problem you're anticipating that I could solve? And then you can kind of say, like, okay, maybe it's not the exact thing I did for this other team, but you can have that conversation to figure out what is the right solution. So those are some of the things that I've observed that I think has been really helpful for uncovering projects.
Cool. So you say um you should probably like before you come up with an idea there you typically do the exploration on your own first. So you have like a working concept before saying, "Hey, we should think about this." Like you think that's a little bit more impactful than
Sometimes I think, yeah, it could go either way. You could like sit down with them and be like, what do you think be exploring? Like, what are your ideas? Or, you can kind of dig into the data on your own and be like, here are some things I found. Like, how does that sit with you? What do you think? Another thing is like if you're presenting like your work, one strategy is like instead of just giving your answer, say like, what do you think the answer is? What do you think the results are? And you can kind of start to learn like where their brain is at and what they're expecting. And maybe it matches what you did, but sometimes you might be like, "Oh, never thought of it that way." And
okay.
so kind of making it more like conversational than simply just one-sided, like here's what I think, because I just, I'm just looking at all your data. I'm not dealing
Yeah.
with like what you're dealing with day to day. Like I'm not in your shoes. Like help me be in your shoes. Um, I can
That's a
help.
really good way of framing it. Thank you. I guess I never thought of it that way because, like, as you know, us being in data, we can go down a rabbit hole
Hmm.
and just not talk to people for hours and not realize
Yeah.
we're being antisocial. So it's cool that you made that distinction that you should have them jump in on the conversation more than you just explaining what you found.
Yeah. Or even before you go in, kind of outline, like, here's where my brain's at. Here's what I think is important to look at. Like, what am I missing? And then they can help you, like, kind of put together your roadmap before you go down those rabbit holes. Um,
Okay, cool.
yeah. Or another strategy is like when you're halfway done with a project, present it and see what they think. Because they might be like, this is what I needed. We're done here. They might be like, you're way off base. Like we need to, redirect. Or they might be like, this is great. Here's some additional questions. And then you kind of know where to go next. But yeah, I think getting to the whole like a lot of people I think come to this field thinking we're just like antisocial behind a computer, not talking to anybody. And I'm like, if that is what you're doing it wrong. Like we
Yeah.
need to talk to people. Yeah, it can be uncomfortable. Like the nice thing is the bar is low. They don't expect us to be like super great public speakers, we can be super nerdy, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely need to be talking to the teams you support.
Cool. Thank you. What would you say is the biggest jump um between, the analytic work and the data science work you do? Because it sounds like you still do quite a bit of
Hmm.
analysis work, but I guess
Yeah.
what's aside from the master's degree really stood out between the work in those two roles?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think once you get into the business world, you realize like the lines are blurred.
Mm,
Like there
yeah.
are some teams that are very territorial and that are very like, this is data analyst work, this is data science work, this is machine learning work, and like
Yeah.
they just really want to keep those strict lines. There's other teams where they're like, we don't care. We have data. We have people who can solve problems. Like whatever you know how to do, that is fair game for you to do your work doesn't matter what your title is. So I think some of the kind of general lines are, the common one is like analytics is reporting what has happened, data science is predicting what could happen.
Hmm.
Another thing I like to think about is like once you start introducing like accuracy or probability or like even confidence intervals, then to me that starts to feel more like sciency versus simply like here's the average, here's the sum. That
Yeah.
feels more like analytics and reporting. Um, in some teams, you know, the analytics is more just about the process of like data collection and defining metrics. And then the data
Yeah.
science is more about like how can we support decision making through data. And so then that becomes the testing and the experimentation and the modeling. Um, but again, like companies can do whatever they want. And so once you get out into working for different teams, you realize they all kind of do things a little bit differently. Um, So it's always important to like read job descriptions to really understand like how do they define this role, and then during interviews ask a lot of questions to understand like yeah, what are there like guardrails on this role, or is it just like whatever you bring to it is fair game?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That I kind of like the idea of when lines are blurred because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like if
Yeah.
you're in data, you're not just doing really one thing. You kind of have to know all parts of the process in order to be effective at
Yes.
the end.
Yes. And I'll be honest, like as much as I love doing, the complex data science stuff, sometimes when I get a task that is just a simple like SQL query, I'm like, this is nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't all have to be like super hard, months long projects where you're like, I don't even know if I'm making progress. Like, it's nice to have something simple. You just check it off your to-do list, you deliver it, the person's happy, and it's like the little dopamine hit. And
Yeah.
then you can move on to like the more complex stuff.
Would you say most of your like true data science projects are months long things, or do you ever have any like smaller, I guess, projects?
It's definitely a mix. I would say with the roles I've had, yeah, it's been a mix where, and some company or some teams will get very specific that we're like, you need to spend, X amount of time, like X% of your time working on like big projects and then this percent on small projects, and other teams are more fluid. But pretty much I'll always have like one or two big projects on my to-do list that are probably taking months from end to end. Or it might go in phases where it's like, right now I'm kind of working on phase one. And then, you think you get to the end of that and it might evolve into like phase two. And now suddenly this is like a significantly longer project. But then, you'll usually every week have kind of the smaller things that are coming your way that you can just kind of check off. So I prefer the mix because yeah, some days I'm like, my brain is just not there. It's, it's just
Yeah.
simple SQL query.
Yeah, and it can be daunting too when you only thing on your to-do list for the day is like do a huge complex task.
Yes, yes. So that even then I have to like break those things down into like very small tasks to feel like I'm making progress. Um, yeah.
Okay. What I guess projects or frameworks, libraries in particular would you say accelerated, your growth the most and really made your career stand out more? Most
Like in terms
impact.
of like skills and
Yeah,
experience or
in skills and in just general career growth. Like what were some projects that you did that really made people say like, hold on, you've got a really great idea here. Let's explore that more.
hmm. Um, I mean, anything that you can really tie to like making someone's life easier. So I know you went to Measure Camp. Were you in the talk I
Yeah.
gave on the like PR tips for data teams? I think you were because you
Was
talked.
that the one where you spoke about? Yeah, because you spoke about elation. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So, um, I think one of the things I shared in that was like make your stakeholder the hero. And so if you think about like at least, if you're in the data science teams that are more like supporting the business, helping them make decisions, like your job is to basically help the business make decisions. And so like at the end of the day, like what ends up getting put out there isn't necessarily like my analysis. It's like their decision, their product feature or whatever. And so if you can really think about more like not so much of like, what do I want to do, but like, what does my business partner need? Um, and like, what is going to help them like make a better product or make a better decision for the business. And so like thinking about, like they're the hero and I'm just like the sidekick helping them. I think that's this, and that's where your brain really starts to
Mhm.
connect to like the impact of the business and how can I make a
Yeah.
difference? And it's no longer about how can I do fun data science things, but like how can I help this company do better? And that's the stuff where
Mhm.
people are going to be like, that was amazing. More of that,
Oh,
that really
cool.
made a difference. Um, and so, yeah, everyone wants to think about like the fun technical stuff, but
Yeah.
honestly, like once you start working, it's all about like, how can I help this business do better, like make more money ultimately.
How,
Like that's the stuff
how
that
do you
people are going to
measure?
recognize.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh
interrupt.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How do you measure that sort of impact when it can be kind of tough to, especially with how much we do on a daily basis from large to small scales? How do you like measure that business impact in things other than, like accuracy or like
Yeah.
AUC curves? Because it's not always that easy to understand like how what you do translates into money in some
Hmm.
projects.
Yeah, I mean, you can do like A/B tests, I think is the best way we have to really point to like there was this change and then, conversion went up by this or revenue went up by that. And so that's why we love our hypothesis tests and A/B tests. And then when I was working more on like the product analytics side, like there was a brief period where we told the product team like nothing gets launched without an A/B test, which was overkill, but at least it gave
Mhm.
us stuff where we could point to like here is, where things got better and where we made improvements. I think the other is just like having that good relationship with the teams you support to really understand um, and like have that two-way communication where you can come back and they can say, okay, like you made this recommendation, we implemented that recommendation, and like we saw this improvement. That's not as scientific as an A/B test, but um, like they know the business well enough to know like very likely that this was due to this like change that you helped us, identify or whatever. So yeah, I think really making sure you have that good two-way communication. So it's not just you sharing, here's what I think, but then closing that loop of like, okay, what happened? Did you do what I
Yeah,
recommended? And then what was the result? And sometimes it can take a while for those results to like, really show themselves. So yeah.
that's a good way of thinking about it. Thank you.
Mm.
Um, if you If you had to restart your data science career today, what or how would you learn things differently to, fast track your way into like a strong data science career?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought about this a lot since like this was my second career and my, undergrad was so unrelated. I always think like, what if I had stuck with my original plan when I was 18 to like study computer science? Um,
Hmm.
but I know for me, like thinking back to, what I was like back then, I never would have developed the communication skills. Like I literally fainted giving a speech in
Oh
college.
no.
Like that's how much I hated it and did not know what I was doing. And now I like voluntarily give talks at conferences. Like I still get nervous, but at
Yeah.
least like I've improved a lot. So I know if I had gone straight into like computer science or statistics, I would have completely bypassed communication, all the soft skills. I mean, I assume I would have picked that up on the job, but not nearly to the degree that I did by working in marketing and public relations. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I wish I would have just maybe made the switch sooner, like talked to more mentors and, because when I was starting my career, in my 20s in marketing, like I knew pretty quickly that I didn't love it. Like within a few years, I was kind of like, I don't think this is the right career path for me, but I'm like, I have no idea what to do instead. And I didn't really know who to talk to figure out what to do instead. Like I had a cousin who was an engineer, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." So I talked to her about engineering, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. I have to get a bachelor's degree. You can't just go for a master's in structural engineering.
Hmm.
Um, so I think, yeah, I wish I would have like started having more conversations, and like maybe discovered analytics as a career sooner, just because, yeah, I mean, the whole like data science as the sexiest job of the 21st century. Like that article in the Harvard Business Review didn't come out until I was like 8 years into my career, so
Oh
I mean, it
boy.
makes sense that I hadn't heard about this career because like
Yeah.
nobody had heard about this career back then. But yeah, I just wish but even like statisticians existed back then, analysts existed back then. So I wish I would have talked to more people and figured out a path sooner. But at the end of the day, like you can only make decisions based on the information you have. And so I, tried to make the best decisions I could for my career and still ended up here. Um, and yeah, I feel like I definitely developed skills that I would not have had I gone straight into this field. So I think career pivots can be good. I think
Hmm.
like, one thing I always tell people is like, if you're true to yourself and like what you're interested in and like your values, like you'll find your way, you'll find a path that is true to you. Um, and I think eventually you'll be at a point where you're like, I have this really unique background, and you'll start finding opportunities where like you are uniquely qualified or like you are now the unicorn
Oh,
candidate because you have this unique background. Like I've had job interviews where like my previous career helped me really stand out because it was really relevant to the teams I'd be supporting. And like a lot of the teams I support, like they love that I have a background on the business side because they're like, okay, you get it. Like you've been in our
yeah.
shoes. So yeah, I think it might, and, the journey to get there might feel tough, but eventually you'll get there and you'll be like, this is good. That my unique path is a good thing.
Yeah, patience is something that's very overlooked.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I get it because I was there. I was like, I just need to figure out something and I can't,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? Someone
I
tell
think what
me.
really stands out the most too is the communication, just because
Mhm.
like one of my bad habits is I like to try to figure things. I mean, it works out to a degree, but like I want to figure out everything. And then before I burden somebody else in my own mind, burden someone else with a question, I want to try to figure it out. But then I end up going down all of these rabbit holes when I
Oh,
could have
yeah.
just started the conversation with someone and had them give me like direction.
I get that so much. Like I just started my current role like 6 months ago. So it's been like 6 months of me like fighting that desire. Like I want to seem self-sufficient. I want to seem like I can figure it out on my own, but I'm like, I have no
Mhm.
idea. I'm like stuck. I'm literally blocked. I need to ask for help. This is uncomfortable. But then, of course, every time I do, it's like everyone's happy to help. They're like, this is no
Right.
trouble. Like, we're here to support you and help you, like the quicker you can work as my teammate, the better it is. So, it's not doing anyone's any favors on my team if I'm just like spinning my wheels, not doing anything. So I have to remind myself of that and be like, nope, it's okay. Ask for help.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do sometimes.
Yeah.
How are you liking being back in marketing again?
I actually like it a lot. I when I switched into product analytics, that was intentional because I wanted to get out of marketing analytics and do something
Hmm.
different. And I loved working in product analytics, and I was looking for my new role. Like I really wanted to stay in product analytics. Um, but I kind of like now being at this intersection of like sales and marketing and like product adoption. Um, because it just feels like that gives enough variety. Also, I
Yeah.
will say in terms of like job stability and impact, the closer you are to how a company makes money, like I think the safer you are in terms
Yeah.
of, stability. So I think maybe it's a little bit better to kind of be closer to like the sales teams, especially versus product. It's all about like user experience and that. And now I'm talking more about revenue, and so I feel like it's easier to be like, I am impactful.
Yeah, that's true. And you kind of like position yourself in such a way where you kind of it opens the door for more like robust projects that can
Hmm.
truly be end
Yeah.
to end from one team to the other.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point.
Cool. What so you mentioned that B2B SaaS is pretty good to be in right now. What are some other industries that you see are either on the come up or are like solid career choices to be a part of something exciting?
I mean, everyone's always said healthcare because people always
Mhm.
need healthcare.
Yeah.
I worked for a hospital system back when I was still in marketing, and it was during the 2008 recession. And I will say healthcare did get hit by the recession, especially because like a lot of elective stuff just wasn't happening. And when you're a
Mhm.
hospital, like you depend on a lot of that elective stuff to offset, you know, people showing up in your ER who can't pay their bills, et cetera. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, healthcare was not like it still exists, it didn't go away. Um, but yeah, they were definitely hit by the recession as well. So honestly, I don't know if there's anything that's like truly, government work. People always said government work was the safe one. And like, okay, we're on, I don't know what day of the shutdown. So like,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think anything is safe. The administration changes and then suddenly it's like new priorities. So maybe state government is better.
You never know,
I
right?
do know, yeah, I do know some people who work for like state and county government. And I mean, certainly there can be a lot of fluctuations there as well. So I don't know. It's tough. I think every industry there's something um that can impact it that maybe you didn't predict.
That makes sense. Would you do you have any experience or knowledge around like FANG companies? Like I've seen a lot of polarizing opinions on like working for them
Mm,
because on the one hand, like their pay is incredible, but I do know there's some stories of work-life balance, but I feel like I'm kind of in a part of my career where I don't really mind that part that trade-off too much for at least for a couple of years. And I also know you'd be the first one to be let go in a big tech layoff.
yeah.
But I've also seen things where like people are effectively, for lack of a better term, blacklisted from jobs because they don't, because the new company don't really want to have to pay that person the same amount. And I was wondering, do you
Mm.
think it's kind of worth it to still go the FANG route, or are there, I guess, do you know much about the nuances about getting into one of those kind of companies?
No, I have interviewed with some of them, but I've never worked for any of them. But I have worked in tech, certainly. And I will say that like there are a lot of tech companies out there that I think are good to work for that have like a good culture, good product.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of been where I've been happy is like finding these like, maybe next level or two down in terms of tech where it's still a tech company, but I feel good
Hmm.
about working there. But I've also heard, with Fang, like you're working with some of the smartest minds potentially in the field. And so being able to
Yeah.
learn from that is amazing. But then on the flip side, I've also heard that you end up in such like a niche focused role that sometimes it might be hard to grow if they're like, nope, this is exactly what you're working on this product,
Yeah.
do solving this problem, and that's your job. So, um, yeah. I don't know. I think there's trade-offs and it comes back to like what are your values? And if you're true to
Yeah.
yourself, then you'll find the right path. But I will say I think we're almost out of time. So it's probably
Yes.
gonna Zoom's gonna kick us off.
Oh, okay.
But this was a great conversation. Thank you for
Yeah.
these questions. This was some fun stuff to think about. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It really helped me put some things in perspective too. So it was a nice little paradigm shift talking to you. So thank you so much for all your
Sure.
advice.